Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is the owner of the Mile High Mecca, Armbrust Pro Gym. Today's guest is Dylan Armbrust. Dylan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
For sure. So, Dylan, we're just going to dive right into a couple questions I like to ask all of my guests. The first question I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
I would say that my two favorite are Dorian Yates and Phil Heath.
Perfect.
Those are my two faves.
So, it's probably pretty easy to guess why Phil Heath is one of your favorites, but why Dorian Yates?
Well, Dorian just kind of brought the really hardcore, he brought a whole nother element to the game of bodybuilding. And I think it was, Arnold had some mental tricks, but Dorian he was going to beat you mentally by just showing up. And, just like he says, he had a force field around him. He's just like, you weren't going to beat him on that day. He came and he trained harder than everybody. He did things nobody else was willing to do, as far as, just really suffering. And when he stepped on stage, he knew he was going to win.
Perfect. All right. So the second question, just to kind of start off the podcast and the conversation, at what age did you start lifting weights, Dylan, and why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Let's see, I started like ninth grade, so that would have put me at like 14 years old. And really, I started because I was wrestling in the 8th grade, and I felt like I needed to get some body strength. And as I started getting more strength for wrestling, I really liked how my, these little muscles were popping out all over the place. And, about that time was all the, the beginning of the Arnold era, the beginning of the Stallone era. So I was just, mesmerized and fascinated by everything. So I found what I wanted to do in life, and that was lift weights and get muscles.
For sure. Now, for the listeners that are listening to this episode, I actually used to live out in a suburb of Denver, and I had another podcast that Dylan has been a guest on. And if I remember right from our previous podcast conversation, Dylan, you were a pretty small kid growing up. And so that kind of tied into then you starting lifting weights and kind of getting bitten by the iron bug. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. I was, ninth grade, I wrestled 117 pound weight class, and I think I was like 114, 115, had some some pounds to give up, but yeah, definitely a smaller kid, and I didn't like it, and I wanted to do something about it.
For sure. Okay, so I just want to touch on your personal backstory a little bit, Dylan, and then I also want to touch on the backstory of your gym, because that's something very cool just to kind of hear about. But where did you grow up, Dylan, yourself? Just talk about the early childhood just a little bit, sports you involved with, kind of what you wanted to do, when you quote unquote grew up. So where'd you grow up? What did the childhood kind of look like?
Okay, yeah, I grew up in Golden, Colorado. Although I was born in California at a very young age, my parents moved to Golden, Colorado, where they make Coors beer. So very small town back in the day. Golden's big and full of a lot of people now, but it was a really small beer town when I was growing up. And went to a school, surrounded by farms. And it wasn't until I got into junior high school when I was kind of starting to notice that I needed to put some weight on, and I was a little bit smaller than everybody else, so I started lifting the weights.
What other sports besides wrestling were you involved with then when you were younger?
I played Little League football. I started when I was 8 years old and played all the way till, junior high. And I was also involved in BMX racing.
Okay, cool. And then what did you kind of want to be when you were a little bit younger? What did you kind of want to be when you grew up? Was there something that you were kind of thinking about when you were a young kid, or not really?
When I was a young kid, I wanted to be a professional football player,
like all of us, right? Yep.
Well, I never really kind of knew what I wanted. I was kind of more of a dreamer. I wasn't thinking a profession, anything. I just knew I wanted to be you know, I loved being athletic. I loved competing, whether it was racing, playing football, bodybuilding. So I never really was like, oh, I'm going to go be a lawyer or I'm going to go do this. And just, I kind of lived my life day by day and everything came to me, and I don't regret any of it.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about when you actually, so you started lifting weights ninth grade, a pretty young age, specifically for sports. When did you kind of transition into full blown bodybuilding?
Well, it's kind of crazy because in ninth grade is when I got the bug for lifting weights, and there's been a lot of myths over the years, and one of them was, if you continue to play football and the coach is going to run your ass off, you're never going to put muscle on. So it was about that 9th, 10th grade year. And I actually quit playing football so I could focus 100% on lifting weights. So it was right at that 9th, 10th grade spot.
And where did you start lifting weights? Was it at the high school or was it like another gym? And then did you have anybody that kind of mentored you or kind of helped you along in terms of how to lift weights and then kind of getting your feet wet within bodybuilding?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to start lifting weights. I didn't know how to go about it. At that time in my life, I was visiting my dad every summer in California. My parents were divorced. So right when school would end, my mother would put us on a plane and we'd go stay with my dad all summer in California. So that's when I decided I was going to join a gym. And so we went out there that year after 9th grade going into 10th grade. And I decided I was going to join a gym. So I joined the World Gym in Manteca, California. It was just this gym was probably maybe 5,000-6,000 square feet. Joined that gym, and there was some big bodybuilders in the gym back then, which I would have thought were big. They're probably not big now, but just kind of watched them. And I came back from lifting weights all summer from my dad's that summer. It was like 2 months, and everybody noticed, wow, you got bigger. And I don't think I got bigger. I just probably got in better shape, and that's where it all started.
Cool. Awesome. Now, when did you kind of start officially competing? Was that still in high school or was that post high school? And then just touch on your own personal competition history, if you don't mind, Dylan.
Yeah, I started competing when I was a sophomore in high school. So back then the AAU had a high school bodybuilding competition, and I joined it as a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. And my sophomore year, I got second. And my junior year, I got first. And then my senior year, I got second again. So, in Colorado, and, of course, back in the late 80s, there was, it was just, we'd eat tuna fish, cans of tuna fish. We'd eat bananas. We'd eat oatmeal. There wasn't really all the logic that goes behind bodybuilding now. So you just kind of went with it. And, everybody that was doing the right stuff was out in California. You didn't have an internet. You didn't have, all the tools all these athletes have today to, know the latest training secrets, to know how to eat correctly, all that stuff. So to become a bodybuilder, it took a lot more time back then, a little more trial and error, especially living in Golden, Colorado.
For sure. So did you kind of like do the trial and error? Was that kind of like something that you just did all on your own? Did you look at some magazines that kind of gain some information, or was there like a coach in the area, or how did that look? Because I kind of want you to share this, because you just mentioned like everything that we have at our fingertips now, right? Like, I think it's information overload, not only for bodybuilding, but in every aspect of our world now. But I just kind of want people to understand, the listeners, the younger listeners, realize like, hey, like, even if you don't have all the right answers or the right coach, like, you can get very far within bodybuilding and life with a lot of simplicity. So was it just kind of magazines? Was it just you just kind of like talking to friends? What did that look like for you in those early years of bodybuilding?
Well, back then all we had was magazines. There was a few like underground books, that said this or that, but all you really had was the magazines. And that's basically what I went off of. And, to any of those young listeners listening now, bodybuilding's about exactly what it says, bodybuilding. And you better be ready to put in time, because it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of hard work. And I think as a young kid, I realized, okay, well, it's football season. I'll get ready for football. Or, hey, it's summer. I'm going to go race my bike. I'll start getting ready. And bodybuilding's not like that. Bodybuilding's year round. And that's what one of the first lessons I had to learn is just training for a show for a few weeks, dieting for a few weeks is not going to cut it. I had to learn to, eventually diet for 2 months, and then eventually 3 months. And then, as you get into it, you realize, you're eating year round, you're preparing for shows year round. And there's just a big learning curve, and a lot of misinformation on how much dedication it really takes.
Mm-hmm. So I want to touch on, you brought up, you mentioned the word logic just a minute ago, in terms of kind of like all the information that we have out there now for bodybuilding. Do you still kind of like go back, like, because I know you train athletes and stuff like that, and obviously owning the gym, but do you still kind of go back to just kind of the old school, simple way of training your clients in terms of actually lifting and nutrition? Or do you think there is, some space for some of this more complex coaching and philosophies? What's your take on that, Dylan?
Well, my take now is I don't train any athletes anymore. I train more people that are my age, that are like, they're mid to late 40s, mid to late 50s, that are looking for a health aspect. Because I always like to coach what I'm passionate about. And right now I'm passionate about, health and longevity. And it's just easier for me to coach that. And, back 10, 15 years ago, even as little as 5, I was still doing some clients, but, that was my passion back then. And, I think when you teach what your passion is, you're just a better coach at it. So, that's where my training lies right now, is where people more just looking for the longevity in game and want to feel good and look good at an older age.
Yeah. And then and I'm assuming then you probably kind of keep it simple, right? You kind of just base everything off of the simplicity of what you learn through your years of personal experience, right?
Yeah. And, what I find, at my age is what I may find simple is not so simple for the guy that is my exact same age, but hasn't been lifting his whole life. So it's not simple for those guys to, oh, okay, well, I've been doing this my whole life. I'm down to eating 3 meals a day now. They're all healthy. Just make sure I drink a lot of water. And that's not easy for other people, because, they're used to just eating when they want. And then they're not used to eating clean. They're not used to going to the gym. So it's actually a rude awakening. So if I can just be by their side and kind of be a positive, experience, make it more of a positive experience for them, be more of a leader through it. So like, look at me, I can do it. You can do it. I think that helps quite a bit. Yeah,
I love that. And that's a great point. So before we kind of transition into the gym's story, you were a high level NPC competitor. What was maybe like a highlight or two of your competition career, if you don't mind touching on that, Dylan?
There was a lot. I competed for many years, but I didn't compete that much, just because I was always kind of a busy person trying, I had my kids at a young age. At 25, I had my first child. So I had more other responsibilities, not saying I could have done it, but I wanted to make a life for myself, but I still competed. I don't know, just I would say probably the junior nationals, 2001, I think it was, when I won the heavyweight class. That was probably my biggest experience. Like, I won a national show in my class, so it was really cool. So I'd say that was probably my highlight.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So let's talk about Armbrust Pro Gym, the Mile High Mecca. It's awesome because obviously Phil Heath, that's where he's trained out of for his Olympias and things like that. But man, you guys have such a young crop of athletes, IFBB pros, training out of there right now. And I feel like it's just, the gym is gaining more and more momentum. And we'll touch on that here in a minute, but what's kind of the story of Armbrust Pro Gym? Like, how did you acquire it? How did it come to be? Just paint that picture a little bit, because it's always fascinating and fun for me and the listeners to kind of find out the story behind the gym. So what is Armbrust Gym? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, of course. You know, it was a gym before it was Armbrust. It was actually called Colorado Pro Gym. And my wife at the time and I trained here. And we, you know, I think 2007, you know, the economy was kind of falling out. You know, we had the big stock market crash. And the guy that was owning it at the time, I think he was just kind of burned out, ready to go, you know, just kind of barely holding it there. And he's tired. So we made a deal to where we could take it over. It was, you know, an affordable price to where he didn't lose out, and actually, you know, made us easier for us to get in. So it was a win-win for everybody. And March of 2008, we took the keys and took over the lease and took over the memberships. And it was on from there. I worked at a gym growing up in high school, which was called World of Health and Fitness. And the guy who owned it was Paul Skinner. He was a great business owner, and I learned a lot of the gym business just working for him for 2 years. So that's kind of what I used to get going. And then as we kept going, we just you know, kept reinvesting and building and reinvesting, and wanted to what our goal was to make it just a fun place for people to go, you know, to get away, you know, and just, you know, just focus on training and no drama and no BS, even though, you know, it doesn't matter what gym you go in, there's always going to be drama. But we just, you know, just kept it professional and kept it real and always reinvested. And, you know, here we are today.
What do you mean? I also own a gym, and for people that are interested in the business side of things, what are you kind of referring to in terms of reinvesting in your business or in the gym? Like, what does that look like practically for a gym owner?
Well, reinvesting is, you know, taking the money you make and reinvesting in, like, upgrading your locker rooms, you know, getting new equipment, keeping the upholstery up on your gyms, you know, paying a cleaning company to keep things clean. I think that's really important as a customer comes in, that they see that their money's being reinvested. They see that, you know, hey, my membership, I do pay my membership every month, and this place is clean all the time. The bathrooms are clean, that they keep the paint up, you know, the upholstery is good. I think that goes a long way. And I think people really appreciate that. And the ones that don't, those are the ones you really don't want as members anyway. So,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And I can definitely speak to that myself, because when I came to the gym and interviewed you for the previous podcast in your office, like, you walk in and it's just, it's clean. It's immaculate. Right. And I think a lot of times when we think of hardcore old school gyms, we think they have to be dirty, grungy, and that's not the case. And so I personally want to speak on that, because I walked in, I was like, okay, this is a hardcore gym, but it's also very clean. It's immaculate. Things are organized. So that is something that I just want to give you credit for. Now, when you guys kind of acquired the gym, Colorado Pro Gym, did you know that you kind of wanted to keep it kind of more old school and hardcore, or did you guys have a plan to kind of transition it at some point, maybe to more of a global gym? What did that kind of look like at the beginning stages?
You know, I wanted to keep it an old school hardcore gym, but one of the knocks on a lot of the old school hardcore gyms you go in is, you know, you might see a piece of equipment that's like, oh wow, that looks like a great piece, but then, you know, the upholstery is all messed up on it, or it's not, you know, the cable's all jacked up on it, or, you know, the fittings is just kind of loose or whatever. So I wanted to have a gym where it was hard. It was kind of like a what do you call it? A museum of type, like, go in and, you know, everything's restored. It looks nice. It's, you know, I feel like I can get on that equipment and I feel safe on it. I'm not going to get a staph infection from it, or it looks like it's going to work. So I wanted to have that old school feel with kind of like, wow, it just feels good to be here. It's clean. It's nice, you know? So I knew what I want.
Yep. Now in regards to just kind of like, is it fair to say that, you know, kind of when Phil came on the scene and was kind of on the rise and then winning Olympias, I mean, that obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but that obviously probably did a great deal in terms of a positive service of putting Armbrust not only on the local map, but the global map. Is that fair to say? And then talk about maybe the energy in just those years when Phil was winning back to back to back Olympias.
Yeah, when just having Phil has been amazing. I feel blessed to have had him as such a huge role in the gym, being able to serve him as far as like making sure, we made sure if he wanted a new piece of equipment, something he liked, he tried somewhere, we'd get that in for him. Really just tried to accommodate him and help him make his Olympia preps as easy and carefree as possible. So it was really cool to be part of that process, and having him trust me in that stuff was really cool. So, and having him in the gyms, getting ready for those Olympias, I'll never forget him. There'd be times when, Flex Magazine being here, they'd be filming, and Philly's always, any bodybuilder always goes a little extra when the camera's on. So there was a lot of camera work, a lot of interviews, and that helped us with exposure. And, we never took it for granted. We just, we were like, what else can we do to help? And because, you got to realize, I mean, I knew I was in a special situation, and I just wanted to help as much as I could to create whatever legacy Phil had in store for him. And he ended up having quite the legacy.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's definitely an understatement. Was there a point, or has there been a point, Dylan, like that, because you've had such an influx of members, have you ever thought about like getting a second location, or are you really just going to try to do the best that you can with the space that you have currently?
I've thought about some second locations for sure. Definitely. I don't know. I go back and forth with this a lot, but I always come back to like just taking care of my nest right here. And I don't know if you can recreate this. I've been to a lot of great gyms around the United States, the world for that matter. And they're just special. You're never going to recreate them. Like you're never going to recreate like Doherty's gym in Australia, Bevan, Steve's gym in New York, or the gym in, San Diego. Those are all great places, all places I love to train. Destination's another one. And I think just keeping all my energy focused on this is probably where I want to stay and keep my energies focused, because I make a decent living. I'm not the richest guy in the world, but I consider myself the luckiest guy in the world, because I just get to walk around the gym all day and I make a decent living doing it. And that makes me happy. I don't need to have a private jet. I don't need to have a limousine. I don't need to have 10 fancy cars. That I know that doesn't make me happy at this point in my life. What makes me happy is just being able to do what the fuck I want and making other people happy, and people coming in my gym and go, wow, I really love your place. Hearing that makes me happy. So, I'd probably just stick to doing that the rest of my life. I'm okay with it.
I love it, man. How do you, you mentioned gym drama a little bit earlier. Through the years and just, overseeing the gym, owning the gym, like how do you kind of set the guidelines or kind of the mentality? Does that kind of just take care of itself because of the members and the athletes that you have training in there? How do you deal with some of that drama? How do you deal with just kind of like, setting the tone of the gym?
Well, when you're a gym owner, all you can do is control what you have, and that's your gym and yourself. And you're not going to control it, because you're going to have lunatics come through your gym. You're going to have, just psychopaths come through your gym. And most of the time, if you just play it cool, like they said, a wise man once said, nothing. And they'll take care of themselves. But you got to kind of like guide them through. You got to be able to say, no, we don't do that here. Or, you'll see them out there making mistakes, and you just kind of let it take care of itself, or you remove the situation. A lot of times gym owners have a problem with kicking people out of their gym because it's a membership. But you got to remember that, first of all, you ask them to go in a classy way. Like, I just don't think this is the fit for you anymore. It's never like, get the fuck out of here. It's always like, let's, maybe come back in a year or 6 months, try it, but it's just not working, because that one membership may be costing you 5 or 6. For people just don't want to go in there anymore because that cancer's in there. So it's one thing you got to keep in mind when you're a gym owner.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Well, I want you to touch on, if you don't mind, Dylan, just kind of like the new crop of athletes specifically. I know you've got all kinds of different competitors in different divisions, but just the pro bodybuilders is kind of like what I'm thinking of. You know, you got Brett Wilkin, Martin Fitzwater, Adam Young, Dorian Haywood. Talk about some of this new crop of athletes that are training out of Armbrust Pro Gym, and kind of like what they're bringing to the environment.
You know, they bring a lot of energy. They do very well in here as far as handling, you know, everybody else coming in here sometimes because they want to see the big guys training. So, you know, they're professionals. They're pretty much straightforward. I kind of stay out of their business. You know, everybody that comes in here is a contractor. So they rent space to run their own businesses. And just, you know, as long as I see them conducting themselves professionally and, you know, being, you know, sometimes you get trainers in and they think they own your gym, and that could be bad. But these guys are all very, you know, very professional in that manner, to where they're polite to other people and courteous, and they haven't shown me anything that shows you know, believe anything else. And, you know, I think it shows when you interview them, you see them being interviewed, they have a sense of, you know, respect and not so much arrogance. But that's just my take. Like I said, I think they're all great bodybuilders. They're all, you know, really nice people. And I think, you know, they all have a really good chance at doing some really cool things in the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I had Martin on the podcast earlier this week, and he told me that when he was transitioning from Wyoming to move down to Denver and start training out of your gym, that you actually, you know, wanted to help him out in the process, gave him some personal training clients just to kind of ease things up. So I think that's just cool. It kind of goes back, and I know this from our previous conversation, that you're a pretty quiet, humble guy, but just being able to serve those athletes, you know what I mean? I think that speaks volumes, not only of yourself, but I'm sure the environment there in general is that way, because that's how the owner, you're setting the tone. So I just thought that was cool. Martin came down, you're like, hey, here's some clients. Let's figure out how we can serve you, help you, just like you did with Phil. So I want to touch on just kind of like putting on shows. Now, what's your official title? You're the NPC chairman for the state of Colorado, or what is that official title?
I'm the NPC vice chairman, and I'm under Jeff Taylor, who's the chairman. And I'm also the Colorado NPC head judge. And I also am IFBB and NPC national certified judge. So I'll travel some weekends to judge other NPC or IFBB events across the nation. So
what's something that you enjoy or appreciate about kind of some of those positions, specifically like putting on shows? I know you put on a couple huge shows each year out in Colorado. What's something that you enjoy about putting on shows and kind of giving back to the bodybuilding community and the athletes in that respect?
It's the same thing as a gym. You know, it's like we had our biggest NPC Colorado Cup show this year. It was August 14th this year. And to just really do the extra stuff to put the smile on those competitors' faces, and to see them walk off stage, or, you know, see them backstage and just say, hey, you know, this is the most fun at a show I've ever had. Great show, great awards. Love how it was ran. Where, you know, just I understand you want to, as a competitor, you want to feel important on the day that you've dieted 3 months for, put all your work into. So as a promoter, I really try to pride myself on making these guys feel, you know, like just feel special that day. Kind of feel like, hey, you know, I am special today. You know, I'm going on, the stage is going to be mine. I'm going to have a good time. Just have everything presented, you know, just top notch for them. So when, like the gym, when I see that feedback come back like, hey, I enjoyed my time. That's what I enjoyed most now, because I know what that was like to feel like as a competitor coming from a show that was just ran so good, and it just felt good. So same thing with lifting in a badass gym. It just feels good. So when I can create that feeling in other bodybuilders and young athletes, hey, that's I'm doing my job.
How does somebody, I've always kind of wondered this, and you're the perfect person to ask. How does somebody like get into being an actual judge, whether that's like locally or even working their way up to becoming an IFBB pro judge? What does that process kind of look like, Dylan?
Yeah, of course. You really got to know what you're looking at. Of course, everybody, and this was myself included, you think, oh, I've been in bodybuilding for years, I could judge a show. But until you really pull yourself away and you start test judging regularly, and maybe the first time you test judge, you're like, man, what are they looking at? I didn't see that. And then the more you test judge, because I had to test judge, a lot of times to, first of all, become the Colorado judge, you got to test at a 90% 3 times, 3 different shows, and then you can become a judge at Colorado. And then, once the head judge or the chairman believes that, you might be ready to get nationally qualified, you can go out and you can test yourself nationally at one of the national shows. And, those have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 athletes in them. And you got to test 90% at that show too. And you're judging 1st through 15th. So it's not an easy task. It's actually very difficult, and you got to know what you're doing. And so, I mean, it's worth it if you want to put in the time. But like people that think, oh, I'm just going to go be a judge, they might be in for a little bit of a rude awakening, because it's a little more difficult than they think.
When you refer to or say test judge, what does that mean?
So when you test judge, you go and you sit behind the actual judging panel at a show, and you have to judge the show behind them and judge it the way you see it, or how you think they're seeing it, or how it should be judged. And you have to be within 90% of all those judges through every class.
Okay, perfect. Now,
And then
go ahead.
and then you get to do a next show, and then a next show. And then when you do, then okay, you're certified. You're okay. You're seeing the stage where all the 7 judges are up here that have been doing this for years. So we think you're ready.
Okay, excellent. Now, in regards to bodybuilding, judging a bodybuilding competition, like when the bodybuilders step out on stage, what is kind of like what is the overall process, like you specifically, Dylan, go through to judge a physique? Like, what are you actually looking for?
Well, first, when they're walking on stage, I'm judging from the minute I start walking them on stage. I'm looking for aesthetics. I'm looking for shape right off the bat. Okay. Because like, okay. And then from there, I'm kind of looking for conditioning. And then, from there, you're kind of looking at, okay, who has the best aesthetics and conditioning together. And, at a local shows, it can be pretty easy, because a lot of times, a lot of people haven't learned how to get in shape quite yet. That's what the local scene's for, is to do, 3-4 shows and, work your way to a national show, which I think is a lot of why people make big mistakes is, they do one local show and they might do good and they'll go right to a national show. And it's like, you haven't even learned your body. I mean, even if you won first place and you slaughtered everybody, do another one. See if you look as sharp, see a difference of your body. Learn your body before you go to a national show, because, these guys at the nationals, these guys want to be pros, and they've been doing it a while and they know their bodies. So, you got to get in shape, and that's what we look for, is just shape, conditioning and balance.
Cool. Now, what is kind of like the, in terms of what you guys are doing out there in the NPC for Colorado, you guys have a couple, is it just 2 shows per year that you promote, that you put on, or is it more than that right now?
It was one. It was just Colorado Cup. Next year, I'm promoting a show with Branch Warren. So we'll have 2. It's May 7th. It's the Branch Warren Classic Denver. Again, it's on May 7th. And then I will also be doing the Colorado Cup again. I think it's August 13th next year.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Now, setting Phil Heath aside, in terms of like an amateur athlete, bodybuilder that you've seen just throughout your years that was like very impressive on that level, is there somebody, when I ask you that, that kind of pops to your mind, or maybe a couple people in terms of bodybuilders, amateur level, that were just mind-blowing to you?
Yeah, Phil Heath for sure. I think Derek Lunsford was another one that was kind of first time seeing him. He had some really good lines and some muscle bellies. Um, you know, moving forward, I really think, Martin could be there. Brett came out and showed that, he could pose with the best in the world. So I'm really excited to see what he has to do next year. This is a guy who could easily be in the top 3 to 5 at the Olympia next year. I mean, he just showed that at the Chicago Pro this year. So, and that guy, as far as mentality, I mean, he's just a workhorse. So, I look at that a lot in athletes, and, you can see talent all day, but until you see drive and mental strength, I'm not impressed. And that's one of the things I see in Brett that's just, so impressive, is his just mental stability to go get shit done and not crack.
Amen. Yeah. No, it's cool, man. You've got some awesome guys in that gym in terms of mentality. We're gonna wrap things up here, Dylan. I do want to touch on coaching here for a second, because there's so many different coaches. Some of them are legit, some of them are not. But if you're gonna just speak to some of the younger listeners out there, if they are going to get into bodybuilding, if they're thinking about getting a coach, from your years of experience and wisdom, what would you suggest in terms of looking for a coach and finding the coach that's going to work best for you?
That's a tough question, because this works both ways. A lot of the coaches and the athletes need to pick, do their homework on a coach. Really do your homework if you're going to spend that money, and see what they've done with other people. Sometimes people hire a coach who, they're the first person they're training, and, they're charging them an arm and a leg just because they just finished a prep with somebody else who they have the whole blueprint for. So you got to be careful of that. You got to look for a coach who, is really interested in, you progressing forward, interested in your health and everything else, because it can, you can lose some money, you can get forgotten, you could get ripped off, you could hit the jackpot and find the perfect coach. So like I said, do your homework, look up their social media, look at them, see is that kind of the person you want to be with. Ask some of the other people that have worked with them, reach out to them on social media, say, hey, I noticed you're working with XYZ, how do you like it? Really just do your homework. And I would say that goes with anything in life right now. Just do your homework on people, because there's a lot of people out there that just put out there for themselves.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One more thing I want to touch on, just in regards to you, because I think this is an awesome subject. You've done the competitive bodybuilding, you've owned the gym, and you mentioned earlier that you're focusing more on clients your age, and you're more focused personally on like health and longevity. What does that kind of look like in terms of somebody maybe in their older years or post competitive years in terms of bodybuilding? What does that look like, Dylan, in terms of kind of more focusing on health and longevity? How does that look? What does that entail for you personally?
Well, first of all, it's like, blood work, making sure you're healthy, and then, start getting the nutrients into your body that your body's no longer, producing for you, because our body starts shutting down as we get older. And, you might have high cholesterol, you might have, bad thyroid, it could be a lot of things, might have kidney problems. A lot of people do a lot of damage to their lives throughout their lives without realizing it, partying and, just, they're not even doing anything illegal. They're just eating fucking Cheetos from the grocery store and drinking and stuff. And you don't realize the damage that does over time. And, it's all about getting the proper foods in your body so your body can, distribute these nutrients to the body so it can heal better. You need to get sleep. And that's about longevity, is, stretching, making sure you can still do the things physically you were doing at 30, or maybe you can't do them anymore and you're getting back to doing them. And, feeling your digestion right when you get into your 50s, your stomach, if you don't, if you're sitting there drinking every night, your stomach's going to just feel like a time bomb, like a washing machine just gurgling it down there, And if you can get to where you're eating clean meals and drinking lots of water, taking your vitamins and exercising, you're going to realize, wow, at older age, I can still feel great. I can still feel like I did. And so when I can get people, on that plane of feeling great again, it's so addicting, and it's it's just rewarding, because they're like, thank you, and it's like, you're like, all right, awesome. You probably live an extra 10 years now.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Dylan. So we're gonna end things right there, Dylan. I just want to thank you again for coming on to the podcast with me for the second go around here. If anybody wants to connect with the gym, Armbrust Pro Gym out there in Denver, if anybody wants to connect with you, where can people find you guys at?
Yeah, we're just real simple. It's armbrustprogym.com. We've got a great website. So anything's there. And if anybody wants to email me personally, any questions, it's just first and last name, Dylan Armbrust @live.com. I'm glad to get any questions you have about the gym, or, things, just anything in general. Pretty simple.
Yeah. You've got a lot of different irons in the fire. And I know from just meeting you in the past, you're, again, a very humble guy and very open to educating and sharing with people and helping people out. So Dylan, thank you so much. If you guys also want to touch base with Armbrust Pro Gym, they have a very strong presence on Instagram. So go to Instagram, connect with them there. Thank you, listeners, for hanging out again on Behind the Muscle podcast, listening, tuning in. I would just ask, if you guys haven't subscribed already to the YouTube channel, please go to Behind the Muscle podcast on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Also, take this episode with Dylan, share it on all your social media platforms. Greatly appreciated. And finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. I will catch you guys later.